We are now being recorded. This is the Durham Infrastructure Committee meeting of Thursday, May 21st, 6:32 p.m. So call to order and roll call. Carol, do you want to do our roll call?
Yep, roll call. Bob, I'm here. Deborah DeFelice. Mark Harvey.
Here.
Paul Grease. Eileen Buckeye. Ralph. And Jeff.
I'm here.
Okay.
And I see we have a call in. Nothing wrong with that, but if you do want to just say hello, that would be great. Okay. With that in mind, moving on to public comment, is there any comment from the public that you've entertained or heard about?
Hey, Bob, at the Board of Selectmen meeting, I heard them talking about water issues down on Tuttle Road, and I'm wondering if we have any idea about the economic impact of that, and I'll listen to your meeting, but that's why I'm calling in.
Very good, Chuck. I'm going to hold off on that. We do have an agenda item on water, and so if you don't mind, I'll wait. It's soon in the agenda. I did also have a public comment briefly this afternoon, which I'll share during the discussion of gas activities rather than go into it right now. I will bring that up during the gas activities discussion. With that in mind, I'd like to move on to the approval of minutes. We have, Carol, you have 3 sets of minutes that you need sign off from. Is that correct?
Correct. I sent them out to everyone to peruse before the meeting. If it's okay, I would like to just accept the April 16th, 23rd, and February 20th minutes as submitted.
I'll second that emotion. Second that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Good. Motion carries. Any noes or abstentions? Okay, motion carries. Old business. We've got a number of things to talk about with old business, including the question from Chuck. Let me, and I see Deb is joining us. Regarding water activities, on May 14th, a grant request was filed by the town of Durham to the Drinking Water Revolving Grant and Loan Fund. Basically, this is a state grant program that can underwrite water systems and other activities related to water and sewer systems. The grant request was prepared in concert with Fuss and O'Neill. It was over 200 pages. I will send you the link. Carol, what I'll do is send that link to you. Please put it in the minutes, and then separately I'll send the link to everyone
Okay.
as well. The application is over 200 pages long. It includes a lot of the information that was used in the original water discussion for the EPA. What makes this different is the application is for the expansion off the main line of the water. And those expansion areas, I'll read these off. It's Area A, which is the MTBE area, Area C, which is the DCE area. Those are both essentially pollutions caused by gas stations and other areas. Area D, which is the Parsons area. Area F, which is the Durham Heights area, Area G, which is Woodland Drive area, and Area H, which is the Royal Oak area. So in reading the application, basically what they're doing, or what we're requesting, is trunks off of the main line coming in from Middletown. Those trunks would go off, as I said, to those various areas: Parsons, Durham Heights, Woodland. The total capital cost of this grant request is $11,253,000. There are contingencies and other fees built in. Contingency would be about 1.1 million, engineering fees about 1.8 million, legal and admin fees of about 562,000. I'm not commenting on the application and its process, other than to say we're looking, or the town, not we, the town is looking at expanding municipal water supply to areas that are affected directly, as well as areas where the water is potable, but it has high iron or magnesium, so smell, taste issues, but not necessarily health issues. Let me pause right there and answer questions as best I can, hear comments. Okay, Chuck, if you would restate your concern about the water based on this information I just gave.
So the areas you just mentioned did not include Tuttle Road, which was discussed at the selectmen's meeting. And I'm wondering if what you're doing or what you're contemplating includes that.
The application for the grant does not include anything for Tuttle Road. Now, we have, as a committee, discussed that a bit and came to no conclusion for or against Tuttle Road, because we're concentrating on businesses and activities in the roughly Main Street area.
Okay, then I'm all set.
Okay.
I got concerned when I heard them talking at the selectmen's meeting, and I'm wondering about the financial implications of going down Tuttle Road or getting to Tuttle Road.
You know, I can't speak to that issue. All I can say is it is not in the grant request for the expansion to study, let me put it that way, to study the expansion of water into other areas and other neighborhoods.
I'm satisfied. Thank you very much.
Can I address Chuck for a minute?
Please do.
Chuck, that was brought up, I believe, because the same VOCs are in homes along Tuttle Road, Route 68, and Clear Ridge Drive. It was found many years ago. The state used to take care of those homes as far as they put in filters. But there is a order from the state at some point, if they go to bond the town, that they have to maintain those filters for 5 years, I believe. And that they have to, so that it's been they don't know where the water source, the state hasn't figured out where the water source to pinpoint it is coming from, but it looks like it's coming from Main Street because it has everything that all the homes on Main Street have in all those homes. So that's probably why they brought up the Tuttle Road issue.
Carol, what's the distance between the intersection of 17 and 68 and Tuttle Road, rough?
I think it's less than a mile, or just about a mile. And I think one of the concerns, but I can't, be positive, is because there's a school on Tuttle, and the plume was going west-southwest, so that would be in that vicinity if it kept going. But I don't know if that's a consideration.
And Carol, do you know whether DEEP is on top of this? Meaning, yes, they're paying for filters. From what I've heard, filters are considered consumables, and the state is not paying for consumables beyond the first 5 years. Do you know if they have any remediation or even study plans for the Tuttle Road?
I don't know any longer. I know that they pulled out. They did not take care of them for the 5 years when the state gave up all their funding for all these issues around the state. The homeowners were on their own. The state DEP put in the filtration system in the homes, and they did come out and check the water periodically and change the filters if need be. But it's been probably now close to 3 years, maybe even longer, I'm not sure, that the homeowners in the area are completely responsible of taking care of it themselves. They were not given water by the state or anything once the filters went in, like some of them on Main Street are still getting bottled water, but the Clear Ridge 68 Tuttle Road people do not.
Well, I think as an action item then, as a committee, we should ask the question of the selectmen, what plans, if any, do they have for Tuttle Road and any DEEP activities? So with the committee's input, I can draft an email to Laura, John, and Kit asking that question.
That's fine with me.
Okay. Hearing no objection, I will take responsibility for sending an email to our selectmen asking if there are any plans for study or remediation of the Tuttle and what was it, Clear Ridge Road?
Yeah, there's, I think there's about 12 houses. It's all a Clear Ridge Drive and some on 68. And I think it's 4 or 5, last I knew, on Tuttle.
Okay. Very good. Chuck, any other thoughts or comments?
No, that answers my question. It brings the next question up, and that is your agreement with Middletown for water. This now goes to a new area, and do you need to go back and redo the deal with Middletown? Are they willing to supply more water?
Generally, and the other members, please chime in. The water needs of the town, when the water lines were estimated for water usage, were a little over 500 total properties could get the water in terms of capacity based on the 16-inch mains going down in size to keep pressure up. The number of properties that are going to be served as it stands right now is roughly 200. So there should be plenty of capacity. nothing that I've read, either in this grant that I read or any of the original EPA, DEEP documents, shows anything about Tuttle and Clear Ridge and 68. So that would be a new topic area. And whether that has to be addressed with Middletown, I don't know. Okay. Very good. Any other thoughts, questions, comments on water?
Oh, Bob, this is Deb. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Even though it's Frank's picture. The reason it's Frank's picture is I was the one on the phone earlier, the call in,
Oh, okay.
and you couldn't hear me. I was trying to talk, but I couldn't. And I tried unmuting, you just couldn't hear me. So that's why that one hung up when this one attached. I didn't have, when you were talking, I didn't have the map in front of me. So the grant, can you read the numbers again? I mean, the letters again that the grant is for?
Sure. It's areas B as in boy, C
Yep.
as in Charlie, D as in dog, F as in Frank, G as in George, and H as in handsome. And those, sorry, I couldn't resist. And those areas, A
Yeah,
is,
that's a big area.
yeah, it is. And as far as neighborhoods go, it's Parsons, Durham Heights, Woodland, and Royal Oak. Plus those areas that we talked about before that were DEEP, was it 481 sites?
Right.
Yeah, so it sounds like that's pretty much all of the places that were on the original maps that they gave us, right? That's basically the original areas plus all of the other ones that were mentioned as possibles.
As I understand it, that's correct, yes. Yeah. Now, recognize that there's a long way between applying for a grant and getting it, and between getting a grant and doing the actual work. So this is a big step to put our foot in the water, no pun intended, to expand the water in Durham.
Yeah, that's wonderful, Bob. During the selections meeting that we presented where we were, Bob explained that this was a possibility. And I know you don't want to toot your own horn there, but he's the one that suggested doing something like this. And if I don't know if we'll get it, you don't know if you'll get the money, but I think this is, even if we get part of it, it's wonderful.
Well, thank you. If we can expand water appropriately at a reasonable cost to the property owners, that seems like a good deal for the town. Now, there are a lot of other questions to answer, including who pays for the difference between what the grant is and what the eventual cost would be. But this is an interesting first step. Okay, let's move on then to discussion of gas activities. Well, I was actually very enthusiastic about this topic until about 4 hours ago. The problem with gas, and we've heard this all along, is we're getting different answers depending on who asks the question. Different answers primarily from Eversource. I went back in my notes from our very first meeting, and the information that we got was that this was specifically a redundancy activity between Wallingford and Middletown, and that as part of that agreement, there would be gas supplied to the schools in the Coggins campus and Durham manufacturing, but those were exceptional activities. We then asked the question again, and we're told that there would need to be reducing stations to be able to step down the pressure from the main line to residential and commercial use pressures. And that's as we understood it until nearly the end of April. Deb, you asked some questions and got different answers. Could you do 2 minutes on the answers you got?
Well, I spoke to, there's different people that are in charge of businesses within Eversource, businesses and residences, and then a project team. So I ended up speaking to all of them, and what I got from the residence guy was, and I can look up his name, but what I got from him was that it was going to be not terribly expensive as long as you use a decent amount of gas and you're in that residential area that is basically Main Street in that area there. So what we talked about that, and I know I talked to Laura last night because she did go ahead with getting Eversource to have a meeting with residences and on Zoom, I guess, and one with businesses. What they had told us was it was going to be inexpensive because they had made changes to the line, what they told me. But then after I talked about it during the Board of Selectmen, I said, why was that cheaper? I don't know. So the next day I called him back and said, can you explain to me why it's cheaper than what we were explained 6 months ago? And he said there's double cut regulators that we've decided to use on that system. One regulator takes the pressure down a certain amount, and then a second regulator takes it down less. And that makes it, as long as you use a decent amount of gas, they do their calculation. And if you are using gas and you have a bigger house or an older house and you're using it for heat, it may be little or nothing to connect. So that sounded great. And I did send a letter to Bob and to the Board of Selectmen members explaining it's not the reducing station they originally told us about, it's the double cut regulators. But Laura said they did, after what we talked about, they did send out letters because they thought it was good. They sent out letters to businesses and to residents in telling them there were Zoom meetings, and there were 2 different meetings that were held. And the resident one was, she said, 10 people. She said, I don't remember how many for businesses, but there were less than 10. But it was very interesting because several of them had said that it was the first they'd heard of it, even though they've gotten letters. I don't know if they thought it was junk mail and threw it out, but they thought that their presentations were very good.
My comment to that is I got an email from Laura on May 1st after our Board of Selectmen meeting that we attended on April 27th, and was told what you were told, that there would be meetings held between Eversource and both residential and commercial users. I didn't know until this afternoon when I looked at the Board of Selectmen minutes that those meetings were held on May 13th and May 14th. I had no notification. Obviously, I don't live on Main Street, but the infrastructure committee is involved. So I called our colleague at the Economic Development Commission, and she too was not informed of these meetings. So I have requested the Zoom copies to listen in on what was said. If that meeting information is available, I'm going to sit in and listen on it. And if I get that information, I'll be sure to forward the links to all of you as well. I have to share, I'm a little annoyed that we've been working on gas and we're out of the loop on this one.
Bob, I didn't know either. I was speaking to her about something else, and she said, oh, by the way, let your committee know they went really well. The meetings went well. And I thought, oh, I actually thought, oh, Bob must have went.
No, didn't know about it. And let's face it, to be fair, these are extraordinary times, and I see nothing wrong with being on top of issues and trying to get it to the right people. I'm not necessarily the right people. We not necessarily as a committee are the right people, but I think it would have been useful for us to be a part of it. So as I said, I'll try and get the copies of the meetings for you. Also regarding gas, again, this is in the public comments area. I talked to somebody who went to that meeting who was also surprised at the information. This particular person does not want to convert her existing heating and hot water systems to gas, and so asked the question that could the piping be laid to the house but not brought in, or conversely from the house out to the curb? And according to this person, she didn't get a particularly clear answer about that, but it was raised as an issue. So that's a public comment or public communication. Any other gas items? Hearing none. Good. Next on the agenda is the discussion of the Board of Selectmen's meeting. That was the April 27th meeting. It was an exciting meeting overall, but we did do a presentation. Deb very ably handled gas and explained it as you heard. I covered the water area. After the meeting, I heard good things that the infrastructure committee is working on the right sorts of things. I did hear a comment that they liked the breakdown of the various components in our study. So I think going forward, as we look at broadband and sewer and cellular, that we do the structure spreadsheet first, and then we can lay out the individual action items individually. So I would say the Board of Selectmen's meeting went well. I think we should try and have presentations to the Board of Selectmen at least every 6 months, more frequently as things arise. Okay, any other thoughts? Well, this meeting is going quickly. New business, broadband. I'm going to pull up the broadband questions that we had last time. I'm going to do a share screen. And can everyone see this is what we were working on for the issues with broadband.
Yes, I can see it.
Okay, I don't want to do a complete reconstruction, but let's walk through and make sure we've got the right ones here and add any additionals as we needed. The problems, different levels of service for Frontier depending on location. Service providers are expensive and cost increasing. Lack of competition in provider options. The regulatory issue that there are cable providers that have essentially a monopoly, that no competition in a town. There are quality of service issues for the satellite carriers, Dish, etc. There are concerns about radiation from additional equipment, particularly 5G. And I would add that 5G is both a political problem and a technology problem at this point. So let's be careful how we address that. We looked at opportunities for regional growth and perceived lack of interest in broadband, or I'm sorry, a perceived interest in broadband until the pandemic. And then we need to assure the adequacy of the bandwidth. Any other things that we should consider as an issue? Okay,
Hold on.
go ahead, sorry.
My only comment would be that if we're talking about broadband, the 5G is more has more to do with cellular service and not necessarily broadband, because even though it is about having faster essentially internet access, the 5G is specifically through cellular carriers and not and I don't believe that it's something that you would technically be able to use as a broadband thing. It would be something like, okay, well, if AT&T puts 5G in Durham, then if you have AT&T, then you can get 5G on your phone, but that doesn't mean that you would have that access in your house necessarily. I mean, it could, I guess, depending on your technology, but again, it just, my understanding is the 5G is more of a cellular issue and not a broadband thing.
I have to disagree with that. Typically, so 5G, right? So the providers are your general cellular providers, but in a lot of areas of the country and other countries, that is their primary means to access the internet. Using basically you have a hotspot at your house where you connect with a 5G or 4G or potentially 5G modem. I know I have some coworkers in other areas of the country, like I said, and that's what they have to deal with. And also with 5G, because it's so much higher bandwidth than the 4G that we and 3G that we have now, or LTE if you have AT&T or whatnot. That's certainly a viable alternative. And that's like also for Frontier, I guess you'd call it, not AT&T now, or AT&T. They're, from what I've read for their, looking forward documents, is to sort of sunset their traditional ISDN and even their UVerse sort of technologies and roll forward with wireless from here on out. So that's wireless is really the future, I think, for broadband, and 5G is the next step in that wireless future.
I agree with that comment. We looked into it.
Well,
Okay.
Mark, this comment was related to the concern about the radiation from 5G towers, 5G installations, because they can be put on existing poles. And it is a concern about the stronger signal of 5G. But should we add a question about 5G as a potential bandwidth?
Yeah, I feel like that. Yeah, that's valid. Yeah.
Okay. So. How does this sound? We have questions about the feasibility of 5G as a broadband solution. Sort of encompasses everyone's comments, but have at it, guys. What do you think? And guys, of course, includes Carol and Deb. Sorry for the cultural reference.
That's fine with me, what you have down there.
Yeah, it sounds fine with me as well.
Good. Carol and Deb?
Yeah.
Okay,
That's fine.
good. Very good. The next step, and I'm blue skying this with you. This is not a recommendation. It's a what do you think comment. We had a number of questions regarding gas and water that we brought up. But most of those decisions were already made. With broadband, this is still very much a clean sheet of paper exercise where we're doing issues and coming up with the background before we come up with recommendations. If it is possible to get representatives from these broadband companies to come and talk to us, as the gas and water people did, I think we should do it. I don't know quite how we'll do that and who to contact, but we'll put that aside for now. If we had representatives from Frontier and Comcast and Dish sitting in front of us, what questions would we ask of them?
Are you, oh, one of the questions that I think we should know is whether they had anything on the books in 5-year plan, 10-year plan, or whatever to increase the service within the town.
The service meaning access, or the service meaning
Access as well as increasing their, I don't know all these technical terms, but whether they increasing the speed or the capabilities. I mean, if it's going 5G, I mean, are they going to go larger than that, or are they going to stay at a 4G? I think that's very important to know, only for the fact too is that the EDC is looking into how it's going to affect bringing businesses into, into town. So we should be able to give them some type of guidance of what we found out as far as expansion within the confines of the town.
I get where you're going. I don't know if I've captured that correctly. All right. Is this close to what you are
Yeah.
trying to get to?
Yeah.
What other?
How to explain it, but there's always a plan that they have, and whether they're going to increase their level of service or not is important to know.
One
The way
question.
you worded it, that's good. I
Yeah,
think it's good.
One question I have, and I don't know how to phrase it, so bear with me, is whether they have different service levels and packages tailored for businesses. Because I would think business needs may be different than residential needs.
Yeah, they absolutely do.
So we should ask what specific programs do you have for businesses? Something like that.
Yeah, because right now I know there's different costs for telephone service into your home for a landline, if it's under a business or if it's residential.
Yeah. Well, that also becomes an interesting question of a work-at-home person. If I am working out of my house, I would want the higher speed of a business because I am in fact doing business out of my house. But that begs a larger question on taxation, because we're not taxing that person's computer and office equipment because they're working out of a home office. It makes an interesting problem.
Typically, the business plans are far more expensive. The consumer type plans, for example, with Comcast or Frontier is the same way. Data is asymmetrical, right? So you can download really fast. So say you're streaming, watching videos, doing whatever. The speed is much faster than your upload speed. Or business plans tend to be more symmetrical because they're doing a lot of data which require uploads. So they're uploading data to whatever. So say you're connected and making voice calls, you're uploading data to do those calls, or you're streaming video upwards, out to the internet. You're using a lot more bandwidth there, or sending files back and forth asymmetrically or symmetrically, excuse me, rather than a typical consumer who is just consuming media. And you pay a lot more for that, essentially. So, for example, Comcast, if say like at my house here, I can get 250 plus megabit download speed, and my upload link is only 10 megabits. Versus like on a business account, it would be like 200, 250, 250 or something like that. And anybody can buy those, but it's just cost prohibitive typically to do so. And Frontier's the same way. They have the same sort of rate scheme, we'll call it. And also they have higher service level agreements, uptime, guaranteed uptime, that type of thing, for a business account, obviously, because if your business is depending on it, it's more critical to have, a higher level of service than a consumer.
Well, with so much being done, obviously ordering and fulfillment, like an Amazon is critical, but there's a lot of information that used to be static that has to be dynamic. For example, product catalogs. You don't have a paper catalog anymore because it's so much easier to maintain when you're doing everything online. So you need that static capability as well as the dynamic capability of ordering and order fulfillment.
And also the Comcast business or Frontier business, that's typically also only geared towards small to medium-sized businesses data-wise, right? So an actual real large technology company, say Amazon was going to come into Durham and build a development office. They would typically pay to run their own fiber to, a higher level provider. So they would basically circumvent the local level provider, so like a Comcast or a Frontier, and go right to the main network hubs. So like a company like I work with, like we paid who knows how much money for our office to get actual fiber dug underground to get to a higher level connection.
And I would think in some ways it's like water and gas, where it's not a complete run every time. There'd be some sort of high-speed run to a location, and then hubs, spokes off of that hub.
Yeah,
So,
I mean that's basically how it works.
Yeah.
Jeff,
Yes.
then would a question be, where are those hubs? Because I don't think we know. You can phrase the question better, but is there a hub that's either close to the business district that's near Middlefield, or is there one somewhere else? And then I don't think we as a committee, although somebody else might know, what are their maximum speeds available? Just getting the basics for us. What's out there?
I mean, I'm far from a networking expert. That's not really my area of expertise. But I know that from what I've heard that, right, so like the schools and the library they're on like that municipal fiber network. So I think anything that can hook into that basically which would be sort of like that Main Street area is where that network fiber is. And that was that other issue that we had talked to about that recent ruling that allowed the towns to sort of, have access to run their own fiber networks. That's where that would hook into.
Okay.
But that's a totally separate thing of Comcast and Frontier, right? They're doing their own thing. They're not really, it's not really the same, sort of an apple and oranges type of comparison there.
Yeah. One,
You
one
would basically, in that case, the town would be a competitor to Comcast or Frontier. And the way I understand it is the town would hold the actual infrastructure, and then you would hire out a provider to actually run like sort of the internet, the ISP service on over that network.
Mhm. Yeah. So if I understand what you said, the hub would be a town of Durham property, and maintenance and distribution from that hub would be a hired service. Did I catch that correctly?
No, I mean the way for that ruling, right? So that recently that allowed that they said they were or it's contested or whatever, but
Yeah.
they would allow the town to run their own service. So we have fiber that comes into the town, right? So the city hall is hooked up to that, or town hall, the schools. So the town would be able to expand that, right? You think of it just as a wire, right?
Yeah.
So the town would be able to run that wire along the poles to your house, and the town would own those assets. But the town isn't going to want to, it doesn't have the expertise nor any desire to actually do tech support to people when they have problems, or actually run the sort of software side of the hardware.
Mhm.
So that would be contracted out to another business who actually does that. So does like the rate collection, actually make sure the network is actually working.
Mhm. Got it. Thank you. One specific question for Frontier is what's going to happen with their bankruptcy plans? You know, how do they intend to emerge from bankruptcy? I made it a little gentler. What are your financial reorganization plans, rather than sort of the in your face about bankruptcy? But I can do either. What
Hey,
else? Yeah.
Bob, they had said, and I know we talked about it in one of the earlier meetings, that Frontier had said that they were going to upgrade from the upper building that they have, the former SNET brick building on Main Street, to their other building, I think also on Main Street. Do we know if they did that?
I don't know. So the one building is just up the street from Torreson, and then there's another building as well that they own.
Oh, no, it goes from there to the houses by wire, but they were supposed to upgrade from that building down,
Oh, okay.
like upgrade Main Street.
Hmm.
I know when we complained about our service, we were told that they were upgrading from there.
Mhm. Okay.
And I know somebody who was in our meeting during the last time knew more about this than I did and talked about it a little. It might have been someone who's not on now.
This is very process oriented, and maybe I'm being too strong on process. I just am concerned I won't say we were burned by Eversource, but certainly things changed with Eversource. And I want to make sure that if we can get people from these companies, that we're structured in asking the right kinds of questions, because we will be asked additional questions as a committee. So So what else? Is there a better way to approach this? How does this hit you? Carol, you've been quiet for a while.
Yeah, the broadband is so new to me and I don't know much about it, so I'm kind of being a sponge, taking it all in, what everyone's talking about. My main concern is what are they going to be able to do for us and are they going to be able to handle it? With so many different companies in town, as far that they have to be on the same level, because you can't have one side of town being at a lesser level than the other side if
Mhm.
for businesses. It has to be, it just has to be equal. I think, now I know that Main Street did have an upgrade as far as their service to be able to have broadband that faster service. And they did start moving it to other areas of town, but I think it's very sporadic. Deb, did you know, did Tri-Mountain Road area get the upgrade?
No, I don't think so. I don't think they've done, I know there was talk of them upgrading and that's what they had said, but maybe the question should be, what are they doing to upgrade? Because I don't think they did.
Yeah, I don't know. So
It would be good to know if they have a map of the areas that they have upgraded.
mhm.
I'm only thinking, like, if they're coming down Main Street, let's just say to 68, to Ozick Drive and the DiNatale properties, are they planning on going on 157 over to Commerce Circle?
Mhm. I just have it as an open. Do you have maps and diagrams of areas to be areas upgraded, to be upgraded? Obviously, like everything else, these need a lot of editing and a lot of changing, but I want to keep us sort of focused on stuff.
Right.
I think that's good, because we don't, other than hearing that they're going to upgrade, I haven't seen, I have them now. I used to have Comcast, and I haven't seen any improvement. I really haven't.
Only the prices have gone up, Deb.
I know in my house, I've had, I think when I first bought the house 4 years ago, my speed's almost doubled since then. So as they're able to, they are moving, bringing things online for Comcast anyway.
Oh, I was talking about Frontier.
Oh yeah, Frontier. That's.
Yeah, we all have our issues with Frontier in different ways. So, okay, what I'll do is I'll rough these in and send them out separate from the minutes. The specific questions don't need to be in the minutes, just that we'll circulate this. Any clean sheet exercise is really dependent on your input. So please, as you think about these and as I get these out to you in the next few days, please spend some time with them and let's we've done really stellar work so far. This has been a good committee, and I just want to see us continue to do that. That would be great. So anything else on broadband for now? Okay, I'm going to stop sharing and get back to this. I do have one other new business item, and that comes up. We've been meeting for a year, and as I said, it's been a good year, but we have not had new officers, and I think it's important for us to stay on track with that. With that in mind, I would like to continue to be chair only to get us through the water section, but it's really a committee decision who's running the meetings and doing that sort of thing. So,
Bob, I think you should continue to be chair. I think you're doing a great job. We should just continue.
I agree.
I would also agree.
I agree.
Wow, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Carol, do you want to, how do you feel about secretary? Do you want to run for re-election or hold primaries and caucuses?
I don't mind doing it. I mean, I don't, it's fine. Unless someone else wants it.
Would anyone else like to take on secretary for a while? Wow. Popular jobs we have. So,
Yeah.
so thank you. Next on our item is general discussion. Anything that we should share as a group?
Well, am I still going to be vice chair?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. If you wish to be, if any,
Yes.
okay, very good. Very
I'm
good.
fine with that.
We have to vote on these, Bob?
Well, it's an interesting problem because that's one of the reasons I brought it up. We have no bylaws. We are not included as a specific committee under the town charter. So we serve and we are appointed. So we serve at the discretion and permission of the Board of Selectmen, which means we're a self-organized committee.
Yeah.
And so we're sort of in this gray zone, which means we have to manage ourselves with the direction of the Board of Selectmen. So it's
That's
interesting.
fine with me. I just didn't want to, be out of compliance. So, that's,
I don't think we are, but I want to make sure we also have input. So that was the,
okay.
okay. And in general discussion, I'll share my infrastructure story. Went to turn on the water on the side of the house, and there was a huge groundhog hole under our deck. And the groundhog had chewed through the coaxial cable so that the only thing left was an exposed copper wire that's in the center. So I called Comcast, and after 20 minutes of trying to get through the phone IVR and not being able to get somebody to listen, I went online and did it because the internet was still barely working. And a guy came out today and fixed it. So way to go, Comcast. Please put people on the line. And if they are on the line, please make them listen. And by the way, anyone have a good solution to getting rid of a groundhog under my deck?
Mothballs.
Mothballs, right.
Okay.
It works.
Yeah, I don't want to get to know him too well and start calling him Chuck, but Chuck's got to go. Anything else in our general discussion area? As always, it's been a good meeting. Thank you. have a motion to adjourn at 7:31 PM.
I second
Yes.
that.
Who
All in
seconded?
favor?
Did Mark second that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
All in
thank you.
favor? Can,
Aye.
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 Okay, I'm going to stop the recording. Everyone have a wonderful evening and be safe and be well.
You as
Thanks, you
well.
too. Bye-bye.